You were at Morgan Stanley for several years in the investment banking division.
He's working for Morgan Stanley.
You know, money is too good, everything is comfortable, it was all great, but I made that move. It's because of midlife crisis.
Okay.
You either change your career, change your car, or change your wife.
Which ones did you do?
I
I'm going to introduce you to the first whiskey. So this is Kavalan, Asia Bankers Club. Today now 110,000 members. You've got offices in 4 different countries across Asia and the Middle East.
I did some calculation. Only the business can last for a year, but that calculation was all wrong.
Right. Glenfarclas, 25-year-old.
One casino in Macau is like $1 billion of net income. That's already more than the whole of Las Vegas.
Strathmill, 28-year-old.
When you move on, hopefully you survive. You'll be laughing at yourself, why you were so worried about that? The first person I interviewed, I was holding a broom and she came in for the interview. She was early, right? Because I was like mopping, you know?
This is a Loch Lomond Inchman, 10-year-old. And why did you try unpasteurized camel's milk? What was happening there?
Well,
Hey guys, Rickesh here, the Whiskey Chief. Firstly, thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. If you could like and subscribe below, it really helps us bring the best whiskeys to you and keep doing this show the best we can. Thanks. Welcome, Kingston. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Whisky Unfinished, where the whiskey's never finished and neither is the conversation. So amazingly, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because we've known each other for, I think, coming on like 14 years, right?
Yes,
like
indeed.
2012, 2013, we met. When you first started Asia Bankers Club, Bankers Club today now 110,000 members. You've got offices in 4 different countries across Asia and the Middle East. So congrats. We're going to dive obviously more into all about Asia Bankers Club a little bit later, but just excited to have you here and to talk about, your journey. So today's focus really, we want to dive into a little bit about alternative investments. That's really what the focus of Asia Bankers Club has been or started with. Bit of real estate, you're getting into longevity. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think that's really what we'll focus on. To start though, let's start with the whiskey.
okay.
So I'm going to introduce you to the first whiskey. So this is Kavalan. Kavalan is, maybe you've heard of Kavalan. So it's a very famous distillery in Taiwan. So this is a Taiwanese whiskey. I picked up this bottle when I was at Kavalan a few years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but they only produce this particular bottle for sale at the distillery itself. So you can't buy this in retail stores or anything like that. You have to go to the distillery, and a lot of distilleries do that, where they just give you a chance to, a little reward for coming that way to all that way to get a whiskey. So this one's at 57% alcohol. So I would strongly suggest a couple of drops of water if you want to.
All right.
But this is a rum cask finish. So even if we just nose it, for me, I get a lot of like pineapple, kind of orange, tropical fruits, like that kind of style. I know you're a little bit under the weather today, so maybe not a lot coming through.
I think you might even get drunk just by sniffing it.
Just by sniffing it, yeah. It is pretty strong.
I'll take your advice. Let me try this.
I'll try it straight, and then yeah, that's pretty harsh on the finish, and try to add a couple more drops of water and see how that holds up. But yeah, Kavalan basically came out of really nowhere 20 or so years ago once they got established, and is huge now around the world. Really large distillery. I think it's over 100 million liters that they produce. It's a massive distillery. They export kind of all over the world. Not this whiskey, but other whiskeys. They make won kind of several awards, and it's just great to see whiskey now is really expanding throughout the world. What started as only Scotland and Japan, now you get whiskey distilleries in Thailand makes whiskey, Australia makes whiskey, I think Vietnam has a distillery. So whiskey is kind of all over Asia now. So for me, we rate all our whiskeys here. So the rating goes from 0 to 10, 1 to 10.
And so what is this?
1 is utter shite, as they say in Scotland, just terrible. 10 is freedom, so the best whiskey ever. For me, I think this is a really nice whiskey.
Is a 10?
Well, I haven't scored a 10 yet. So far, the highest I've ever given is a 9, which was already pretty amazing. I think this is a solid whiskey. So for me, I'm going to give this a probably a solid 6.5. I think this is just like a good average kind of drinking whiskey. So, but let's get everyone in the audience kind of caught up on your story a bit. We met when you were first setting up Asian Bankers Club. You were at Morgan Stanley for several years in the investment banking division, right?
Yep.
It was a big leap to leave what I assume was a steady position and things were going well to start Asia Bankers Club. Do you remember kind of what that thought process was like? Like, take us back to that moment when you decided, all right, I'm leaving my reliable job with a nice huge company to start something completely new. Tell us about that experience?
Well, I mean, I don't think I can ever forget that really. That experience and what really triggered my move out of a stable career job, like you say. Money is too good. Everything is comfortable. You're working in a nice office. I was at ICC. It was all great. But I made that move. It was really funny how that come about. Of course, there's the official and unofficial version of it.
We're only interested in the unofficial, for sure. Now that you've made that clear, we 100% want the unofficial. What was going through your mind at the time?
No, well, I'll tell you. I gotta tell you the official reason. Right? The official reason is because of midlife crisis.
Okay.
Right. I was like 34, I think, or 32. Okay. I can't remember. And it was midlife. So you either you either change your career, change your car, or change your wife.
Yeah.
So I chose.
Which ones did you do?
I looking back, I changed all three.
That's what I was like. I actually knew the answer to that question, so that was a bit of a setup. I know you changed all three. So it took a decade, but you went.
I know. But you started with a career first, right?
Okay.
So that was
tell us about that. Let's
So anyway, there was the.
But where did the idea come from? Hey, I want to do a membership club for bankers, in Asia, in finance, and at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, you were focused on physical assets, right?
Correct,
that was the original concept. Where did that come from?
Actually, it was really funny enough. I was sitting there at my desk, lunchtime, having a box of rice or something, and then I was browsing the internet, right? And then I was reading some articles. So one of the articles that I came across was about investing in domains.
Okay.
Right. Domains, right? Like a google.com or something.com, right? So I was like, wow, people actually make money investing in domains. Yeah. So I was like curious about it. So then I don't know why, but somehow, then a name came to mind. The name was Bankers Club.
Okay.
I was like, I don't know why. I just thought of that. So I put in, it was GoDaddy, right? GoDaddy.com. I put bankersclub.com, and then it said, not available. Then I was like, okay. And then a minute later, and then I was like, why don't I put Asia in front?
Right.
So I tried it. It was like, bingo, it's there, right?
And so you just bought it.
Like
right
$990 US a year or something.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll take my credit card out. I was like, oh, this is a good investment. It's a good name.
Right.
We'll just take it, right? So I just registered for like 2 years. And then I couldn't stop thinking. It wasn't about, this is being an investment. I'm going to trade this. I'm going to sell this for millions of dollars one day. It wasn't that. It was like, it's such a great name. Like, why can't I do something about it? So that's how the idea came about.
That's it.
So and it didn't take me too long, to be honest. It was about 3 days. I think I remember vividly. It's less than a week. I think it's probably 3 or 4 days. And then I had the ideas, and I decided that I have to just do it.
That's pretty amazing, because I think a lot of people, maybe some listening, right, who are in various corporate jobs, think about leaving their job to start something, right? And I'm on the other side, right? I've always been an entrepreneur, so like I can't even think about like working for a large company. But obviously, the majority of the world runs on people working for large companies, and people think about switching or having doing a startup, but most people don't do that. Was there do you remember at that point? Was there a lot of fear? Was there a lot, or you were just hey gung ho? I got to do this.
No, right a lot of fear. I mean, I don't have a lot of backup. It's not that I have a lot of funds lying around, that can last me forever. I did some
big risk.
It was big risk, yeah. I did some calculation with all the savings I had. I was like, okay, if I were to, not spend so much money and I allocate this much for the business, which hopefully the business can last for a year, then maybe this whole thing I have 1 year.
Right.
But that calculation was all wrong.
Right.
And it took me probably just 3 or 4 months to utilize all the funds.
Right.
And then before you know it, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, now what is next? Like, okay, now credit card debt, right? Then okay, after first credit card, second credit cards,
Right.
and then you keep rolling, and then you get worse and worse. So honestly, the first 2 or 3 years is no fun at all. I mean, now when you think back, it sounds fun.
Right.
But
The
not,
startup, just the pure startup, the idea to, let's say, concept phase is a tough one, right? But you went all in. You didn't test, like, you didn't like wait and kind of develop it while you had your job. You just went straight in. But how did you come up with this idea of, hey, we want to do a membership club for people in finance to give them access to alternative investment or physical, let's say, assets? Where did that idea come from? Did you talk to a lot of people who had said, hey, we wish we knew more about alternatives or physical assets?
I guess it's more really my kind of own experience and what I've been through and difficulties are as a banker to be able to invest in financial products.
Right.
I mean, I was sitting in the front office. So whenever you need to do certain investments, you need to get approval from compliance department. By the time you get the approval, the stocks would have moved up or down or whatever. It's just too much work.
Right.
Right.
So you were limited personally in your investment options, and you were thinking, okay, if I do things that are physical alternative, at least I don't need the compliance approval to be able to do those.
Correct.
things.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And of
And
course,
you thought there'd be other people in that situation.
Yeah, true. I mean, it started with real estate because that's the easiest one, as a physical assets for most people to understand, right? So I was looking at that, and that makes sense. I still remember the very first project I brought to Hong Kong was a project from New York.
Okay. And you knew nothing about property or real estate. You didn't have a background. It's not like you had a property, degree, license.
No, not at all. Zero knowledge. Zero knowledge.
So tell us about that story. So how did you find this person listing a New York property, and how did that work out?
I just cold call. I just made some cold call, and I just flew to New York, which I did not budgeted. That's why
Extra expense. So you flew to New York. You met, and you thought, hey, there'd be people in Hong Kong interested. In this property.
Yeah, I still remember some of the people I met in the the first 2 months of my running the business. I barely have a proper business card, seriously, right? And then I just put up some PowerPoint myself. I was meeting one of the owner of the large real estate agency. I think he's probably retired now. It's very powerful guy, right? And then there was this young guy coming to him and say, let's work together.
Right.
It was amazing that he even took the meeting.
Gave you the chance, right? But I think there's a good lesson there, right?
Yeah.
Because I think as an entrepreneur, particularly if you believe in your idea, you have to make those cold calls. You have to try, right?
Yeah.
Especially when really you got to make your business work somehow, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It was around that same time actually when we met. I was starting the whiskey fund. Right? I was starting the world's first whiskey fund, private equity fund, and I met my business partner David Robertson in a similar way, cold call, right? I researched over a weekend. I was looking for someone who had a particular background, and then I sent, I think, 15 or 20 emails to the people I tried. 2 responded. 1 was willing to do a call, and we ended up business partners we're still working together today, 15 years kind of later. So sometimes you have to be willing to take that risk, right?
Yeah.
And ask. If you don't ask, you're never going to get the answer, right?
Yeah. But I think it's a fine line between, how long you think you can last or you can, hang on.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there has to be a deadline.
And was there for you? You're looking at your cash flow. Obviously, you're a finance guy. You understand what's happening. You're potentially looking at some debt options. Was there ever a moment where you thought, okay, this is not going to work. I should just let this go?
No, there wasn't. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
So that's why you get into more trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. Was there... you started to see enough success and that's why you were confident to keep going, or what was happening that gave you this kind of want to say, okay, I'm gonna make this work no matter what?
No, I think it was more like you think that is the business that you want to do, but you know that it will evolve, right? But you just want to go along and see, let's say, how we can tweak this business idea and try to make it work. So the business strategy has been changing, especially in the first few years. Even today, to be honest, it's like more than 10 years. We are still changing our strategy.
Well, and I think that's important. You have to be willing to, adapt to, and sometimes even pivot to what works and what doesn't work. I remember those days. I mean, I used to come to quite a few Asia Banker Clubs events. We did some wine events together back then. I think at one point you had a Formula One race, like a young guy who was trying to become a Formula One driver.
Yeah.
You were trying a lot of things back then, right?
Yeah.
And that was pretty impressive, I thought. But I'm sure it was stressful from your standpoint, trying to figure out what really stuck, right?
Yeah.
And so when was it? So you started Asia Bankers Club 2012, 2013, around that time, when real estate, which I know is a big part of your business now, when did you feel that really took off, or that you could see that, hey, we should cement and like this is going to be a core part of our offering? When did that happen?
I think it didn't really take off until 2015. I think it was around 2015 when we started selling Thai properties.
So you were definitely in further credit card debt at this point, I'm guessing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
At one point, I was thinking that I should be, working for the credit card companies instead. It's so much better.
Yeah, it's much easier when you're the guy collecting the interest instead of getting the debt. And so how did you try to, why did you do this offering from Thailand property? Why did that happen? How did that happen?
It's also by chance, really. At that moment, nobody really knows that you can actually invest in Thailand. I mean, I didn't know myself as well. And then I was just like, basically, at that point, I was like trying everything I can. Spending late at night, I was like sending cold call emails to all the developers in all countries. It does not matter, whatever I can grab on the internet, I was sending emails, right? Somehow, just by luck, chance, you got the email to the right people, and you got invited to Thailand. And there was the guy, it was Sansiri, right? So the biggest developer, huge, right? Yeah. At that moment, I didn't really know how big they were. I mean, I can see that, it's a nice website and stuff, I didn't know that they're the biggest. Yeah. So I went there with not much, hope or like know that this could be something that's really big. And then I've not even been to Bangkok back then. Honestly,
so everything was new.
But crazy.
The membership was growing at this point. Like, can you remember? You were
Oh.
getting people in. Were they paying a membership fee to start, or were you offering it free? What was your strategy to get the members for? And it was anyone who was in finance anywhere across Asia. Is that right?
Yeah. At the beginning, it was pretty. I was more strict in terms of who gets to be members. The criteria to be in the industries. I did charge a small fees back then. It was like I can't remember, a few $100 US a year kind of stuff. Yeah. And then after a while, we opened up to more people. When we started, it was a sharp rise in membership. But it was a lot drawing on my own network of friends, people in the industry. I think in the first 1 year, we probably like, 4,000 or 5,000 members,
Which is pretty quick at that time. And it wasn't like a big like online marketing strategy or anything. It's not like you were taking out ads and doing all of it. It was really a lot of referrals and doing a lot of events where somebody would invite their friends and come along. And that's really how it built pretty organically, right?
Yeah, correct.
But there was interest in this concept, and people wanted to, I guess, belong to this, this kind of club. It wasn't a traditional club. It's not like you had a space and like a Soho House or anything like that. This was more obviously virtual. It was more about, what was it about back then, I guess? Was it about networking? Why did people want to join? Did they just want a job? What was it about?
I guess it was a lot, like you said, networking, and also the events that we were organizing back then. It was totally crazy. Yep. Like, we brought our members on a cruise to nowhere.
Right.
Really nowhere.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, cruise to nowhere from Singapore, right? We have members from Hong Kong flying to Singapore. We get on a cruise. It was all fully sponsored by Star Cruises.
Wow.
They gave us like, I think, 100 cabins.
That's amazing.
And then all fully paid for, dinner, lunch, breakfast, everything.
I see why people wanted to be a member.
Said, wow, just come on board, right?
But there was a huge turnout. Yeah. I mean, I remember even you and I did an event. It must have been 2013 or 14 at American Club. And we had like 150 people show up for this like alternative panel where I was talking about wine, I think. Yeah. And we had somebody talk about stamps and someone else talk about something. Maybe it was art or something like that. Yeah. But there was always a big turnout. That must have at least given you some confidence that, hey, there is demand here, but I guess you didn't know how to monetize that. Is that what was happening?
Yeah. I guess that's a fair statement.
Because there was interest, and then it was just like, what are we gonna sell to these? Okay, great to have 5,000, 10,000 people, but if we don't sell them anything, we're not really making any money here.
So it was back then, which I don't really have the salespeople, my own sales team. So I was like kind of like tapping on luckily
Yeah,
like
partners,
like
yeah.
you yourself with your team, right? So I mean, meeting you, I know at that moment was amazing, right? I mean, we did so much things together.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were not that supportive at that moment, I might not be here today, to be honest.
Well, that's very kind. Yeah,
cheers
that's
to
great
that.
have you here. Yeah, cheers, cheers. On that note, we'll try the second whiskey.
The second one now?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
on to the second one. So the second whiskey here is a Glenfarclas 25-year-old. So we've bought the ABV way down to 43%. Glenfarclas 25-year-old. In my opinion, this is the best value 25-year-old whiskey anywhere in the world. So this is like, if you come to my home anytime, I've always got a bottle of this kind of around. So it's under 2,000 Hong Kong or under 200 pounds a bottle. You can get a 25-year-old whiskey. There's no other brand that you can get a 25-year-old whiskey of this quality. And so this is I am cheating a little bit in terms of the ratings here because I snuck this in because it's one of my favorites. I thought you could also enjoy something that's like easy drinking, nice to have. If you want something that looks impressive at the home bar, if you have a friends coming over or you take a bottle somewhere, this is the bottle I would suggest you take, the Glenfarclas 25, because it's just a great gift, or it just looks good because everyone's, you're opening a 25-year-old whiskey for me.
All right.
It looks good for everyone. So for me,
but this one tastes a bit more bitter, yeah?
It does for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe coming off of that one. It just for me, I think it's actually well-rounded for me. I think it's got like great tannins, great fruit. This is very classic sherry Speyside whiskey. I'm gonna give that a solid 8. A solid 8 out of 10. I think this is just what 25-year-old kind of whiskey. But I think also if you give it maybe add a drop or two of water and give it a couple of minutes, your palate will adjust to the next whiskey a little bit and give it, come back to it as well.
Because I took this one just now before.
So give your palate a chance a little bit.
Okay.
So let's dive into, so now real estate is what percentage roughly of what you guys are doing today is the real estate side of the business? It's a large chunk. Is it a majority?
Well, I think as of last year, it has changed quite a bit.
Okay.
Before that, I would say easily 95% of what we do. But as of last year, that has dropped a bit more to like about 80%, I would say. So then we have other type of things that we offer to complement.
And is that I guess a reflection on the market in the sense that there's just a little bit less demand in real estate right now, given some global uncertainties, etc., or is it a conscious choice from your side that you're trying to expand to more products, or is it a bit of both?
It's really both. I think timing wise, a lot of market is slowing down. Real estate market is slowing down, certainly in Asia. We just Middle East that's really doing well now.
Yeah, so, there's been a huge oversupply in a lot of places. I mean, I just moved to Phuket 9 months ago, and I can tell you there is so much construction all over Phuket. All I see are cranes and new condos and more condos and more condos, and I'm wondering who's going to live in all these condos in Phuket. And maybe there is enough demand. I'm definitely not savvy enough to understand the real estate market, but it seems like things are slowing down a little bit. And then certainly here in Hong Kong, that's been going on for a few years now. Singapore may be a bit different. I guess we saw a huge influx of Hong Kong people moving to Singapore kind of during COVID, but then now the prices have gone up to pretty much Hong Kong levels. So the benefit isn't quite there in Singapore as much. What are you seeing across some of the other countries? Are you seeing something differently? What's your view on kind of the real estate market right now across Asia?
Across Asia, I think there are still certain value really, certain parts of our markets. I mean, like let's say in the case of Thailand, I won't say that it's all doom and bad.
Right.
I mean, certain prime areas, prime locations in Bangkok, I mean, they're still worth investing, right? And then of course, depends on what you want. I mean, if this is more a bit for your a bit of a holiday home / investments, that's fine. But if you want to gear in all about making returns, rental yields, it's not in Thailand, unfortunately, at this stage, right? It's more like, let's say, Dubai, Abu Dhabi,
That's where the
right?
rental
Or
yields
maybe
are.
Riyadh, which is coming up soon, right?
And
Yeah.
for your members,
Yeah.
obviously you've had this real estate business, which is, and congratulations, by the way. I know it's very impressive. I've been to some of the events. I've seen you guys do a lot of work where whole weekends where you had a lot of like showcases of properties, and I was always very impressed by
Thank
the
you.
way everything was put together and all the information and how well it was marketed. And you'd have hundreds of people coming through, right, in every given session. So congrats on that, and that's
Thanks.
exciting. So from that point of view, and I guess from the real estate side, what is it that most of your members or clients are they looking for? Is it an investment or is it holiday home? What are people looking for?
More and more is definitely investments nowadays.
Yeah. And they want the rental yield, or are they looking for that value? Like,
pretty
I
much.
want to flip it in 5 years. Is that what they're looking for?
I think there are different type of clients. When it's about the Middle East, the clients that we see are a bit more mature type clients, like 40 and above. So they typically, they do flip as well.
Yeah.
But I think I would say more like 50% probably would want to go for that rental yield,
Okay.
because you're getting like 8, 9, 10% a year.
I mean, that's pretty
There's
good.
there's real yield,
Yeah.
right? And it's in USD, because the dirham is pegged to the dollar,
Right.
So these are dollar returns, so
Right.
they want it.
That's very
Yeah,
attractive.
but the problem is, of course, it takes time to build these apartments, right?
Right.
Some of these projects can be like 3 to 4 years before they complete.
Right.
So your money will be with the developers, waiting for completion,
Right.
right?
That's the downside, and so you have to wait until then. And then, but once it hits the market, what's the rentability? Like, this stuff is
it's
all
so fast. It's so
gone.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just lack of supply in all these places, because the population growth is so high in these Emirates,
Right.
because of what's going on around the world.
Right.
The whole world is moving there.
Well, I've definitely noticed a lot
Yeah.
of people, particularly from the UK.
Yeah.
I think have moved to Dubai. I think people from
Yeah.
Hong Kong also.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a whole influx of Russians. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's still happening, but there's
Yeah.
people from all over the world really
Yeah.
have chosen Dubai, and I guess Abu Dhabi and other places
Yeah.
as well
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
So when did you start going into the Middle East? When did you see that?
2.5, 3 years ago, but 3 years ago probably. Yeah.
And how did that come about? Was that again another opportunistic? How did you start?
It
to
was
look
it
at
was
that
it
market?
was it was actually right after COVID, and then we see a lot of activities, a lot of people talking about, oh, Dubai,
Yeah.
the prices are going up and up. I was a bit skeptical, to be honest. I wasn't really sure, and until I actually visit the place, I see it with my own eyes. I talk to the local people. I try to invest myself. I try to flip it. So with my own experience, then I said, wow, this is real. This is not some BS, right?
Right.
This is real stuff. So that's actually what convinced me, right? So even in the last 3 years, I've been traveling so much. I mean, I would count myself as a Emirate resident now.
Yeah,
I do have the ID.
You have the
Yeah.
Was it the golden visa?
The golden visa. I spend like more than half of my time a year in the UAE now.
Right.
But of course my wife and kids are still here.
Yeah.
But I always remind her. I said you can have 4 wives over there, so she could have come quickly.
If she wants to be number one, is that what you're saying? She should invest in becoming number. Does she like Dubai? What's her
No,
view?
she loves Dubai. She
Yeah.
loves Dubai. But of course, not when it's summer.
It's difficult. It's challenging.
yeah.
So interestingly, and you brought up the pandemic. I'm curious to
Yeah.
hear, what happened to your business during the pandemic, because that must have been a super tough time in terms of you obviously not doing events, people are not traveling. So let's talk about that. Interestingly, the only time I've really spent significant time in Dubai was during the pandemic, because it was 2000. It was 20. My daughter was born in 2020,
Yeah.
right at the beginning of 2020, which was obviously a difficult time. And then we made it to 2021, I think it was, when she hadn't seen her grandparents. So my wife's from the U.S., so both of her parents live in the U.S. And I don't know if you remember back then in Hong Kong, it was like 2021. There was a flight ban from the U.S. There was a flight ban to the UK. So if you went to the U.S., you'd have to like go like washout in Singapore for like, there was all these quarantine measures and all this stuff. And, you know, it was getting to the point that, you know, we really wanted, obviously, grandparents to be able to meet their daughter, who was now already more than a year old.
Yeah.
So we actually moved to Dubai for a month. So we lived in Dubai for a full month. I think it was around April timeline.
Okay.
And then that way her parents were able to come and visit us there, and we had the best time ever. I mean, we got an apartment, we rented a car, we even had a helper. Like, we were living the Dubai. I was just working from there, kind of live the Dubai lifestyle. And for kids, there's so much stuff to do. Even I think for adults, for everyone, there's always so much stuff to do. So food is amazing. So we really enjoyed our time there. And I even thought, hey, maybe, you know, Dubai could be good for us. But the heat is just like, that summer is just, I'm not sure, something I could really enjoy full time. But I'm excited to go back to Dubai, and I'll hopefully be going in the next few months and see what's going on there. What was the pandemic like for you and your business? How did you guys get through that?
Surprisingly, at the beginning it was tough, to adjust, to revise our strategy, right? I mean, back then, I've never even heard of Zoom.
Right.
Seriously, I
Everything you did was in person. It was all...
Then we discovered Zoom, and it was like, okay, let's do online webinar, and it seems work. People, I think that the what actually helped us at that moment, it was a couple of things. In fact, looking back, honestly, those periods of during COVID, we actually did much better than even after COVID.
In mostly in property.
In properties, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the reason was a few things. Number one is, people can't travel, so a lot of people are stuck at home.
Right, with nothing to do.
So what do? You can't be Netflix all the time. So you join some of these online webinars.
Right.
We chat. They have more time to spend with us. And then, of course, social distancing was relaxed a bit. Remember, during Hong Kong, then people can come out with masks, but you still can't travel abroad. So there are still more people in Hong Kong, right?
Right.
So they can attend some of these events, smaller scale events that we were allowed to do.
That's true. Yeah, you had the advantage of people being able to come
right.
see. Yeah.
And then because people still can't travel, like now, people go to Shenzhen for their weekends.
Right.
We did not have that problem before.
No, no, not
so
at all.
now it's tough, right? Now it's
getting people's attention and getting them to commit to come and attend is a bit tougher.
Yeah, definitely, right? And then what else? Like, of course, even the hotel rates during those times when you're doing events, you had a lot of promotions.
Well, because the hotels would do anything to get you guys to do an event there. Nobody was. I mean, a lot of weddings and everything. All the trade shows, all the conferences were all canceled. Right. Nobody.
Correct.
Doing that. So
correct. And
so I guess there was a silver lining to the pandemic, depending what business you were in. But it sounds like it was actually net positive.
It was for us. It was good. Not as bad as we expected. And of course, the other thing that the Hong Kong government helped a lot. Not just our company, but all businesses, right? There are all these like cheap financing, all the perks, all the bailouts and stuff. I guess that helps everyone.
Yeah,
right?
That's amazing.
To ride through. Yeah.
So the membership, going back to kind of talking about the membership, isn't you started? You said the first year it was maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. You're now at 110,000. That's a significant size membership club. When did most of that growth happen, or is it still happening? What's going on with the membership now?
I guess in the last 5 or 6 years, that's where most of the growth happened, right? And then we're at a moment of, to be honest, in the last 1 year, we see a bit of flattening.
A little plateau, because you've reached such a high level already.
So that's why that also what brings us to re-strategize again, and to add more fuel to create new products for the club. So like just now what you say, longevity, static stuff, wellness.
Hey guys, Rickesh here, the Whiskey Chief. If you made it this far in the episode, firstly, thank you so much. As you know, it takes a lot to put on these kinds of episodes. So if you can like and subscribe below, it really helps us bring the best whiskeys to you and keep doing this show the best we can. Thanks. So where did that come from? And I'm drawing obviously on if you don't mind sharing. I know you posted about this. You had a bit of a health situation. Was it last year where
it was
you
just
ended up in hospital?
It was just last year in September or October. I was in ICU in Dubai.
Yeah.
And you know the
Please
reason?
share it. Yeah, please share. Yeah, a bit of the story.
Well, it's really crazy. Camel's milk,
Right. Unpasteurized.
unpasteurized camel's milk.
Right. And why
Yeah.
did you try unpasteurized camel's milk? What was happening there?
Well,
What was
Well,
going
well,
on when
well,
you're away
well-
from your wife and children and you're in Dubai? What's that? What are you doing?
well, first of all, it did not happen in Dubai.
Oh.
For all fairness, it wasn't because of Dubai.
Okay.
All right, I was in Saudi.
Okay.
All right, so Saudi, no alcohol. So
Right.
forget whiskey. You can't. Well, now they just
They
legalize it.
just
legalized.
Just changing,
Yeah.
right? For I think for foreigners only.
For foreigners who has certain minimum income,
then you're
you allowed to buy. Yeah. But you also have very limited options, and there's
Right.
probably only one store that can sell that.
Right.
And you can't get alcohol in restaurants or bars.
Right.
So it's all
I
there's
better go set up the second shop. I feel like you got to introduce me to the right people. I feel like things are opening up. So if we take a long view, maybe there's an opportunity there.
I think you probably have better business bringing camel's milk from that sell in Hong Kong.
So yeah, so because you couldn't get alcohol, you go, well, just give me the camel's milk.
Yeah,
Right? Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
what
I think that's better. Yeah.
Why did you? What? So
No,
how did you
anyway,
end up-
anyway. So the way people socialize, they spend the time in the evening is either drink coffee or drink camel's milk.
Really? Not tea, because I've been to like Turkey and places where like tea is very popular. Like I know in Istanbul, I mean people do drink
Yeah.
in Istanbul as well, but a lot of people like they love to have apple tea, like the small little like cups of apple tea, and you play backgammon. So I mean, there's many cultures around the world where if you don't have alcohol, they have
Yeah.
even Egypt, things like that.
Yeah.
People drink a lot of tea, but in Saudi, I've never been to Saudi, so camel's milk is what you drink.
Yeah, I was at somebody's home. I mean, it was a nice place. And it was a big field. And I think it was coming to midnight. I thought that hey, it's gonna finish. We're gonna go home now.
Right.
And it was like, no, the party starts now at midnight. All right, okay. So what do we do? We were eating so many dates, right? And then they were like, okay, let's
love
bring the
dates in the
camel's
middle.
milk. I was like, camel's milk? Like where? There were like lots of camels out there, seriously. So
Right.
it was all fresh.
Oh, you actually went and milked a camel?
No, somebody milked them. Somebody milked them, and then
'Cause I want to hear that story.
and then they brought it in.
Did you
right?
watch? Like you saw?
No,
someone,
no,
they
I did
brought
not, I did
A
not.
bucket of milk in.
No, they brought a bucket. No, not one bucket. Like lots of buckets. There were like I think 20 or 30 people in the room.
Wow.
So it was like a big tent, right? So they had the big buckets and then like bowls for everybody. And then I was looking at it. I was like, wow. And then I can see some fur, camel's fur.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. So totally not pasteurized.
Right.
And then they go, let's go. I was like, okay. I didn't know that you can't do that
But how come everyone else was okay?
because they're used to it.
oh, so
They
you build
grew
up
up.
a tolerance.
Yeah,
to it,
yeah. And when you first do it, you can't go like one whole bowl.
Which is what you did,
Just do like one or two sip and that's it.
Right.
And then you got to do it over time and over time.
and build up a tolerance.
Correct.
But you had a lot more.
I was like, come on, down, man. The guy was like, oh, this guy is gung ho.
And then how quickly did you feel some of the
Immediately,
effects?
2 hours later.
So this is like 2-3 in the morning. You're like, oh,
2
this
hours
is not
later, yeah. So I was already in the first ICU. One day it was all right, not too bad. Got out, and then I flew to Dubai. On the third day, comes back again. So the next round is three days of ICU.
good. Wow. And the
It was like-
ICU is mostly to rehydrate you, or what is the effect it has on your body? Like, did they explain that to you? Like, what was happening?
There was a medical term. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, it's basically it actually caused a spike in my sugar level and lots of stuff. All the readings were off the chart, and my pancreas was inflamed as well at the same time.
Wow.
So it was all the drips and stuff. Oh my gosh, this was
Scary.
so scary, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man.
I'm
Now when I see camels, I run away.
yeah, yeah, camels are not your friends.
no.
anymore. Man, I would have hated to listen in on the call you had to make to your wife from ICU to explain why you're in ICU in Saudi Arabia because you drank cow's milk.
But anyway, so that's actually what inspired me for like what we talk about, the wellness business, right? Because for 13 years now, I've always been about helping our members, our clients, friends, invest their money, grow their wealth
working
through physical
100+
assets,
hours a week.
And honestly, I'm happy that, of course, I wouldn't say it's 100% success rate, but I think our success rate is pretty high. People make money, good returns, they're happy, they come back, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's one.
And you're also not, I think it's important to clarify, you're also not responsible for, the decisions people make. At the end of the day, people have to make their own decisions in terms of investments, right? I mean, it's great that obviously things have worked out for them and generally speaking, right? But people are making their own decisions on what they're investing.
Yes and no. I mean, I can't say entirely that really, because I think, people, they buy through us because they believe, they trust that we have the the capabilities and the professionalism to do the due diligence, right?
They're trusting that you're doing it on their behalf.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, if you can get the market right, you think Dubai is going to do well. But if you choose the wrong developer and the company go bust,
right,
it's going to be bad. It's something that you need to check as well. Is there any problem with the project, right? First of all. So, I do stress out myself a lot, making sure that nothing like this happen, right?
Yeah, only dealing with trusted
partners.
partners.
So I can't control the market. I mean, I can read the market wrongly, but, at least I can control, a bit more on choosing the right partners, the right products, right?
Right, that makes sense.
So, anyway, so I think after more than 10 years doing that, I think then, for me, I look at myself, I was like lying there at ICU. I was like, so I think, you know what? This is the physical assets that I think we missed out.
Right.
The most important one.
Right. The body.
Right. So what's the point of making so much money? You can't enjoy it. Right. So I was like, okay. No, I got to do something about that. So then I was like thinking, okay, something to do with longevity. So that was what I was
saying. Which is a big topic around the world right now, especially in the last, I would say, maybe 1 to 2 years. Longevity has become a whole new fascination.
Correct.
From everything from ice baths to taking peptides and IVs to the way you the way you eat and train and all that.
Correct.
So what part of longevity are you trying to focus on, or is it more exposure to all these different ideas?
So, first of all, that business is a medical concierge business, right? So basically, we are like the middleman,
right?
Bringing the members to the right partners, right? Whether they're in Korea, in Thailand, in UAE, Switzerland, or wherever they are, right? We find good partners for them.
So you do the due diligence, make sure this is a trusted program.
Correct. So we do 2 areas, right? One area is aesthetic. Aesthetic means external body, right? So you want to look good,
So there's a lot of Korea there.
Yeah. So and then of course you have longevity, right? Longevity is all about living longer. So under longevity, there actually quite a lot of things you can do, right? I mean, of course, the most common that people will go for is stem cell treatments.
Yeah, that's become very popular now.
Yeah.
I mean, have you found that there's actually medical, because it's so new, is there actually evidence that it works? Have you tried it yourself? Have you ever tried? I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I have not, but I'm actually going to. So I've made an appointment. So I'll tell you after next month.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back and kind of have a whole thing. I mean, I met with somebody in Thailand. It's big in Thailand. Right?
Yeah.
And there's lots of different clinics. So I did meet with somebody in Phuket. I'm kind of trying to learn a bit more. They were saying I should do NADS is one of them, and curcumin was another. That are like kind of standard IV. You do it a couple of times, and then you do it once a month, and it's supposed to help with your energy and da. I talked to some friends who who really love it and do it and are kind of bought in, and I've definitely talked to some friends who said there's no medical evidence whatsoever that it works. I think somewhat it's untested. Like there's not enough facts, there's not enough data, right? But I think also everyone's an individual, so maybe it works better for some people versus others. I don't know. What's your view on this whole stem cell?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just share what I know, to be honest. I've been diving deep into this topic myself, because I'm actually using it on myself as as a I won't say guinea pig, because I do believe in that, right? For me, I feel that it's not really that new. It's been around for a long time, right? And there are basically 2 groups of I would say stem cell therapy. The one that you mentioned in Thailand, a lot of it is from donors' cells.
Okay.
Right. So you get from the umbilical cord. Right. So you get from the donors.
Yeah.
And it's not your own cell, which there are pros and cons. Right. So here,
a lot of it is like flown in from Germany and things like that. Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense because if you think of it from the point of view of like if you are somebody already with a lot of health problems, you already much older, then your cells are no good anymore.
Right.
So it does not matter, which body fats you take it from. You're not going to extract those good cells
you're on the older
to
older
culture into more cells, right? So then you might as well use somebody's cells, donor cells. So that's the one of the camp of stem cell research or therapy. And then there's another one, of course, in Korea. I know I've been in Korea so much, especially given my wife is half Korean. So I've been meeting a lot of doctors and those hospitals over there. The way they do it is different. They use your own cell.
Right.
Right.
To help
So,
you rebuild.
Right. So your own cell could be from your blood, which I don't really recommend because that's actually risky. Putting blood, like recycle back into your blood vessels, that sounds risky to me, right? Contamination and stuff, right? So so I wouldn't do that myself, Then you, of course, you have like from your body fats, right? And then from there you culture it and then put it back to your body. So of course that lab has to be very reputable, has to be safe, clean, no contamination. There's a lot of these things that goes behind. Of course, it's regulated by the government.
Right.
So every country have their own different ways.
Yeah, I think.
Right.
Would you say Korea and Thailand are in Asia are probably leading the way? Obviously, in the U.S., LA is huge. Where else would you say is
of course, definitely Switzerland is
Switzerland's popular,
yeah, and and then I think Hong Kong wants to be in a hub for stem cell as well. But of course you can't do that here.
That's not legal here, right?
Yeah. As I know that it is not, so that nobody offers that.
Right.
But having said that, you see a lot of conference events happening in Hong Kong being the hub.
Interesting.
Of stem cell research, right? So that's so I think anyway that's
something new that you're expanding into, learning more on behalf of your members, helping them with these medical. Well, speaking on longevity, I have one solution here myself, and that's to have a little whiskey every day. And I think that helps a lot with longevity. If you take a look at a lot of the successful, particularly people like Jane Goodall, et cetera, who live like long time in their life, they often attribute a little bit of whiskey every day help them with that. So who knows if there's any truth to that, but I'm going to subscribe to that theory. That drinking a little whiskey every day helps you, just a little. This third whiskey is a special one for us. We are going back up in ABV now, 55%. This is our own independent bottling, Halcyon. So Halcyon is our core range. So this is our range of independent bottlings, and this is our latest release, Strathmill 28-year-old. So this is a 28-year-old whiskey from a distillery called Strathmill in Speyside. You can see from the color, very dark, very sherry. Yeah. That's the idea. This is what's called a single cask release. So this was just one cask. I think there was only 150 bottles, something like that. So that's it in the whole world. That's all we have of this particular whiskey. Yeah. Good to try on its own, but I would definitely add a couple of drops of water to let it open up. And for me, this Strathmill is, I think we're retailing this at 150 pounds a bottle. So it's not a crazy expensive whiskey, but I think in terms of the value you're getting for a 28-year-old, and again, I'm biased on this one because this is one of our own whiskeys, but I think it's just very well developed, 25-year-old. Now we've moved up to kind of 28-year-old, but you're getting that cask strength. So it's a little bit more strength, when it comes across in the palate, and a little bit more boldness in the flavors. So I'd give this a solid 8.2. I think just a little bit better than the Glenfarclas, a little bit more punch to it. Just a really nice, well-rounded whiskey. So
very nice.
So for the membership now, you're expanding into longevity. Is that something that you've tested? Obviously, you've gone through a personal story that has kind of led you to, okay, now you're interested in it personally. Are you seeing this as something do you do a survey with your membership? How do you know what they're really interested in?
No, honestly, we, since this is not available in Hong Kong, we don't really like offer this to them. What we do as an alternative, surprisingly, I think not many people actually know about it, is traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay.
So TCMs is of course pretty well established in China, in Hong Kong. So we work with partners here, and they do have their own longevity kind of
Yeah, of course.
programs as well.
Yeah. Have you
Right.
tried a lot of that? Are you?
Yeah, I have tried those as well. So
Okay.
we'll see how that works. Yeah. So
And what's the so educate me a little bit. Is it's drinking mostly like certain herbs and teas, or is it more using needles? What's the type of therapy?
a mixture of both.
Okay.
A mixture of both.
Yeah, because I've done some of that. We get acupuncture.
Yeah.
I actually think acupuncture really works. I've
Yeah.
used it. I had like lower back pain like
Yeah.
a few years ago, and I saw a Chinese doctor and through some therapy of
Yeah.
of some acupuncture. It definitely helped. I'm not
Yeah.
saying got rid of it. I think there was a few other things I did that also helped, but
Yeah.
it was a great, I guess, assistant, or like if you're doing it as part of other things,
Yeah.
I believe like there's Eastern medicine, Western medicine, and you should try both. Like
Yeah.
there's benefits to both of
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
So is it that kind of stuff that you're
It is
helping
exactly that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I guess a lot of these are is still, I would say, early stage for us. But the good thing is yeah, I'm not sure what I share with you. We have a new investors on board since last year.
Yes, congrats.
Thank you.
Tell us about that. This is some pretty big news. I'm curious to hear how you got this, but please share first.
Okay. Yeah.
A little bit of the background.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I want to share this is because we will link back to the wellness stuff as well. In mid of last year, we got in investors, family office of Mr. Lawrence Ho to the group.
Yeah.
Right.
Huge.
So
And for those who don't know, Lawrence Ho, Macau Casinos, Melco Group, massive, right? Absolutely massive.
Yes. So very glad that they're on board. They now become our second largest shareholder.
Yeah.
So so substantial shares enough to actually have them
Yeah.
contributing a lot to us.
And so why would a casino group owner be interested in Asia Bankers Club? Help me do the connection. How did this come about? How did you even meet him?
Well, basically, we have known the person who runs the family office for quite a number of years, and he personally actually invested with us in Vietnam.
Okay.
So for a very long time, and I guess they like what we do. They like how we were professionals, the advice we gave, and they make good money from those investments themselves, right?
Okay. So they tried it, they tested it, but that was mostly on the property side.
On the
right?
property side, and I guess Asia Bankers Club, I guess it appeals to them because network, right? And I mean, but if you ask me deep down, what's really happening is really the chemistry somehow.
The
It's just
relationship.
like, honestly, I mean, if there's no chemistry, it's very difficult for me to open up,
Right.
and have them, as such a big partner as well, right? So I think that chemistry is very strong. We see good value from yeah.
And are they an active shareholder in the sense that are they trying to bring something to the group, or it's more they're helping from a strategic kind of board level?
Not really active as in running the business,
Right.
but they are active as in they are so open with their ecosystem for us to tap on and leverage on. So coming back to the question you asked about wellness, right? Because under their group, they have the IRAD hospital.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
So IRAD in Macau and Hong Kong.
So there's a tie-in now to be able to
Yeah,
do
so because of that, and IRAD is the largest imaging center in Hong Kong, right?
Right.
And they also do aesthetic and that kind of stuff, and they just open up in a casino, a hospital. So they're
opened
doing
a hospital inside the casino?
it's a casino. It's a medical
Why?
tourism.
Why?
Medical tourism.
Oh.
So the point is,
I thought it's like you gamble too much, you go to the hospital, you come back, you gamble more. No?
it's I guess the concept is more like the husband will be gambling, the wife will be doing some
Getting some
aesthetic
treatments, I
treatments
see.
and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a push in Macau. I guess
Yeah.
there always has been to try to do more
That
the
gaming,
just gaming.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I've heard that for 25 years. I've never really seen it come to life. And just in my opinion, like, and I haven't been to Macau in a little while, to be honest, but like there was always this dream of Macau kind of being a bit more like Las
Yeah.
Vegas in the sense that
Yeah.
an entertainment space, a family.
Yeah.
Has that really happened in
I've
your
seen
view?
that. I've seen that change a lot. I mean, if you look at, especially because I still have young kids, so
Yeah.
I do bring them, for all these like water park and stuff. There are more and more of those activities
Yeah.
for them. Like Studio City is full of like kids facilities,
Okay.
right? And then like the House of Dancing Water,
I mean, that's been there for like 10 years, right? I've
they
seen that.
revamp it,
Yeah,
right?
I saw it twice already. So, like, but my point
Yeah.
is that okay, it's great to have that, but
Yeah.
can we have 10 shows like that?
Yeah.
That hasn't really taken. It's
Yeah.
not at that level, right?
Yeah,
It's still
yeah.
gaming is still, and the revenues in Macau are what 8 times what they
Oh,
are in
6
Las
times,
Vegas.
yeah,
It's
no.
not even close to
Like
Las
one-
Vegas. Most people don't realize that. They think that Las Vegas is the gambling capital of the world.
Yeah.
It's not even
No,
close.
no.
Like
Go.
Macau is
one,
six
one,
times
one
more.
casino in Macau is like I don't know, like one billion US dollar of net income.
Right.
That's already more than the whole of Las Vegas.
Yeah, and that's
And then you have
one-
six
yeah, and that's
six
just one
casinos
casino.
operator in
Yeah,
Macau, right?
Yeah, and
So
you're
it's
s- and
amazing,
You're
yeah.
seeing obviously changes in gaming licenses around Asia. A lot of new countries in the last few
Yeah.
years that are
Yeah.
kind of allowed that. So let's go on to our last whiskey. This one is a peated whiskey. This is a Loch Lomond Inchman, 6 single malts, 10-year-old. So just to throw this in at 46%. So this is what we call a peaty whiskey, a smoky whiskey. Right?
Okay.
So this is gonna taste very, very different, smell very, very different than everything else we have. A lot more medicinal style. So
Okay.
a lot of time with peaty whiskey, people either love it or hate it. They kind of love the smell, and this is like very popular to them, or they're very, very against it. Generally what happens.
Yep.
But some people love, peaty and sherry, etc. Personally, again, have to full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of peaty whiskey, but I like to try everything and kind of enjoy everything a little bit. So I think it's good to try different things, right? And the goal for today was give you a bit of an exposure to different whiskeys, have a sense to try something a bit different.
To be honest, I like the first one the most.
Yeah, interesting.
yeah.
So that was the Kavalan. So that was more the
Yeah.
rum and a little bit sweeter style. I would give this a solid 7. I think it's well structured, good 10-year-old, but doesn't have that depth of flavor that I personally enjoy. But I think a good decent whiskey. So talking about alternatives and whiskey being part of that, whiskey, wine, art, etc.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from an Asia Bankers Club point of view in terms of interest to learn more about this? At least in the reports that I read, and correct me, if you're seeing something different, there is an increase in interest in alternatives. We're seeing obviously an interesting time, let's say, in terms of uncertainty around the world, and there's a lot of nervousness in especially U.S. equity markets, which are especially in tech and et cetera, where people made a lot of money, but prices are very high right now. There seems to be a growing interest in diversification once again in this cycle, and how to get away from that, and alternatives obviously I believe has a role. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing the opposite? What's your view?
I think alternatives investments is definitely have a big role. I mean I wouldn't put Bitcoin into the same.
Yeah, crypto
so
is,
I put it aside.
That's a good clarification. Let's put crypto aside. So we're talking more about physical assets, so wine, whiskey, art, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I think to be honest, wine and whiskeys, it has of course over the last 10 years been driven by consumptions in China, right? I mean, a lot of it to do with the Chinese economy, right? I guess the challenge a bit is, what is the replacement? I mean, that the economy is slowing down in China, and then so who else is going to consume these things, right? I mean, Middle East is booming, but unfortunately, right, alcohol is not really the
Not
kind
a
of
big
stuff.
part of it, yeah.
A big part of it.
I think Dubai a little bit, but it's still the expats.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of alcohol actually being consumed. I would say hidden, let's say behind closed doors, in certain circles. But actually, and I'm heading to India on Wednesday, and I haven't been there in 20 years. So My bet is on India.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of growth in India when it comes to, well, it's a growing economy in terms of millionaires and wealth anyway. Whiskey has always been part of Indian culture since the Brits lived
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the things they left behind was this love for whiskey. But what we're seeing is that shift from blended whiskeys, the Johnny Walkers, the Chivas, and all that, which people have been drinking for generations,
Yeah.
now into single malt, and it seems to be taking off in a whole new way.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but just last year, UK signed a trade agreement with India. So the import duty on whiskey was 150%,
Oh.
which is extremely high. That's now been halved to 75% through this new
Okay.
trade deal. It goes down to 50% within the next few years, and then goes down to 40% over 2 years. So
Right.
there's definitely, when you have governmental support,
Yep.
I feel that's the first stage in helping things kind of reform, because there's been a relatively closed economy in terms of whiskey demand, because it was just prohibitive to spend money on single malt whiskey when it's 150% more than, let's say, local Indian whiskey. When you now bring that down to 75% or 50% import duty, but the quality, I would argue, is higher in Scotch versus Indian whiskey,
Yep.
it makes that shift
Yep.
more palatable, right?
Yep.
You're willing to try some of those Scotch whiskeys. You go, okay, I'll pay a little more because I'm getting something a little bit more. I'm not going to pay 2.5 times more
Yep.
just to drink something a little bit.
Yep.
So we're only just beginning to see the effects of that. That's actually why I'm heading to India, to kind of try to understand a bit more. I think similar to yourself, right? You got to go if you really want to learn, right? You got to go firsthand and see what's going on and understand what the opportunities are.
Yeah.
That's from the whiskey only perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think the challenge here is really not about that there isn't a market for it, or or it's not a strong enough market, but I think it's more of like the knowledge.
Yes.
Right, a lot of people are lack of the knowledge of, like, even if I'm convinced, how do I start? Where do I start? Right.
Right.
So I think that's I think you come in timely. We had this conversation before this podcast about how we can try to work together and bring back the expertise and education for our members, so that there is another angle, another options for them, right?
Well, so let's go there. So if you were, let's say, personally looking to invest in whiskey, what would you want to know that you don't know right now? You can ask me anything. What would you want to know?
I guess on behalf of everybody, I'll ask, I guess the very, very basic questions, right? I understand it's always about demand and supply.
Yep.
Right. Demand side, I know it's a growing population. Some countries you have aging populations, but in general, it's okay. It's growing. Yeah.
Right.
So now on the supply side is the part I guess a lot of people do not really understand. Right.
Yeah. So I guess on the supply side, it's important to understand that obviously there's whiskey made all over the world, but when we're talking about investing in whiskey, for us at least, we're really only talking about Scotland, right?
Okay.
You could talk about Scotland and Japan, but being honest, Japanese whiskey has gone up a lot in the last 10 years. So we don't see a lot of upside potential because the prices have already reached quite a high level. So when we talk about investing in whiskey, it is about basic supply demand economics, right? And the supply of whiskey is limited in Scotland because there's only 120 distilleries that there are in Scotland. And Scotland has always been, and Scotch has always been the premium whiskey, especially when you look at markets like China, India, now Middle East. There is a lot of growth and opportunities there. We are hit by things like U.S. tariffs. So Donald Trump put a 25% tariff on Scotch coming into the U.S., which he did in his first term as well. That's definitely having an impact on American demand at the moment. Obviously, we hope that's relatively short term, and we'll see what happens there. But hopefully, there'll be some changes that will, if they can get rid of that tariff, then Scotch would once again become more popular in the U.S. and you'd start to see that rise. But the supply is really limited by the number of casks that are available, right? So it all comes down to casks, and it all comes down to aging, like what we've tried today, right? We've tried a 25-year-old, a 28-year-old, we've tried a 10-year-old. You can't make a 28-year-old whiskey today.
Yeah.
This was started 28 years ago, and we bottled that last year. So it technically started 29 years ago. So it comes down to that aging process, and investing in a whole barrel or a whole cask of whiskey, you're investing in time. And that's kind of how I think about it, which I think there's a little bit of beauty in this world today where everything is about instant gratification, right? It's like, we're waiting for the lift and we're checking our email, and if it doesn't load fast enough, we're upset, right? Investing in whiskey is about patience. You need to have a 3 to 5 year horizon. You need to buy a whole cask and invest in that whole process. So that's at least how we look at it.
Yeah, I guess that's I guess one of the most basic questions people will ask, and two is if I were to start, what sort of investment amount is needed?
Yeah,
right? That makes sense.
That's a good question, and obviously you could kind of start anywhere. Like we have clients starting as low as £5,000 to £10,000. Right, £5,000 to £10,000 will get you started. Are you going to make millions on £5,000 to £10,000? You're definitely not, right? So generally, we advise our clients probably looking at somewhere in the, let's say, £25,000 to £50,000 mark. So 250,000, 500,000 Hong Kong. I think that's a much more reasonable number to start at. So I think for a lot of high net worth individuals, that's a reasonable amount to diversify. And again, nobody's saying put all your money in whiskey, right? I mean, you have your portfolio, you have your equities, you have your property, maybe you have some crypto, etc. It's more about having that diversification and having those alternatives.
And what sort of returns can we expect?
Yeah, good question. So traditionally speaking, and looking at the market, we're looking at 15 to 17% IRR. So as you know, I ran a private equity fund from 2014 to 2021. We raised 12 million US. We exited at 26 million US.
Wow.
So we delivered 17% IRR, gross IRR.
Over a
7 years.
7 years.
17% per year over 7 years.
Okay.
So, and we did exits kind of along the way.
Okay.
So actually, I think what's interesting, and I'll be sharing this more with you kind of after the podcast, is we think there's an interesting opportunity. It's all about market timing, right? Yeah. I don't know if you agree. I think real estate's about market timing a lot. I think whiskey's not that different. So we've seen a huge rise in whiskey, 2014 to kind of 2022. And then in the last 2 years, actually prices have come off quite a bit.
Okay.
There was a delay from the pandemic, a few other factors, the U.S. tariffs, etc. So we've actually seen prices come off about 30% from their high 2 years ago. But now things are starting to kind of bottom out, and we're seeing things kind of stabilize a little bit. Supply has been cut back, which is what happens. And this is the same cycle we've seen, over generations, over the last hundreds and hundreds of years. So we believe, having done this now for 15 years, that we're now in that next cycle where, okay, we're not going to time the exact bottom of the market, but we're pretty close to where it is. And if you have the opportunity to buy low and sell high at the simplest, investment level, that's what this is all about, right? So that's what we're going for. But thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I really learned a lot. I thought it was really fantastic having you here as a guest. Yeah, we've tasted 4 whiskeys. I learned a lot about Asia Bankers Club, and really congratulations on all this success over the last 12, 13 years that you've had. I guess one last question. What are you personally or professionally most excited about in the next 12 months? What's one thing that you are really looking forward to?
To be honest, I think you're going to laugh at me.
No. No more camel's milk, I think. That's
No, I mean, honestly, I have something I really want to do for the club over the next 12 months. Something that have never been done before.
Okay.
I want to bring this club to the next level. And, I think over the last more than 10 years, we have focused a lot on investments, right? Of course, a lot of real estates, It's something that we will continue to do, but I want to do more than those just investments, right?
Okay.
Because like I just said, wellness is important, right? Wellness is not just about your longevity, but it's about your happiness as well, right? I'm reaching 50 years old. Right. But my twins, they are just 15 months now. Right. So I look at things a bit more different now. So I want to inject more fun to the club.
Okay.
So I want to have lots of other crazy activities that we've never done before.
Like what? What's one thing you hope in the next 12
It can be
months
as crazy as, it can be a some dating events. I don't know.
Okay.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
Any crazy stuff, right?
Okay.
So I just want our members to, if you're watching this video,
Yeah.
I don't know, just watch out for the next 12 months. It's something that I'm so fired up to do.
Great.
It's something, the fire was there 13 years ago when I started, and now I want to put it back again. This is like the next era of Asia Bankers
I'm
Cup.
excited, and I hope we can do some of those fun things
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
It's going
let's
to
do
be
it
great.
together.
So thank you so much for your time. I think we learned a lot. We covered, what's happening in the Middle East. We talked about ups and downs
Yep.
in the property market and where some of the opportunities are. We learned a lot about your entrepreneurial journey, some of the pivots you had to make,
Yeah.
some of the debts you had to take on in the early days, which we're glad are way behind you, and really so amazing to see some of the success you have now. I mean, could you ever have imagined 13 years ago that someone like Lawrence Ho would invest in your business? That would have been a dream beyond dreams, right? So really, I hope you're proud of everything you're accomplished. So I think all 110,000 members thank you for creating something new, and we thank you for spending your time with us today.
I think thank you for all the support all these years, and to all the members with us for so long. I mean, really thank them for that. Maybe I just leave one final note
Yes, sure.
for the audience. I think if anyone ever thinking about setting up, jumping out, doing your own business, I do strongly recommend that. Right,
Me too.
It's
I'll
a
join
very
that.
it's a very scary move. I still remember 13, 14 years ago when I was doing this. It was so scary. And then like you said, did I ever thought about giving up? Of course, I can't say no. There is of course moment when you say let's give up,
Yeah.
right? But then I persist on and I said no, we're not giving up. Okay, I just think of it like, you're gonna, this is tough. I was crying. At sometimes you're just there, taking a shower and you're crying for no reasons. I said
There's a lot of
this
emotion
is the end of it, right? And then I keep telling myself one thing. I was like, remember when you're dating someone, like that moment is like the happiest time, and then time will goes by, you get married, and then you can only look back for that special moment, right? I'll keep telling myself that time will pass, that you look back and then you miss that moment,
Right.
because back after when you move on, hopefully you survive, of
Yes,
course.
yeah.
Then you look back, you'll be laughing at yourself. Why you were so worried about that?
Right,
That was
yeah.
the fun part, the most fun part. I still remember when I was in the company, I was the first person I interviewed. I was holding a broom when she came in for the interview. She was early, right? I was like wearing my shorts. I was like mopping, and she left the interview, right? So it's like, there are so many fun things that happen, right?
Yeah.
So
It's hard to
do it.
appreciate in that moment, but I think your point is that's what you need to do.
But having said that, you have to find the right place to do it.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it's not in Hong Kong. I'm so sorry. I know I'm in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But the market is actually,
It's tough here.
it's tough. The booming market now is in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people need to be more aware of it. And I think
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's not only Dubai. People think Middle East, they only
Yeah.
think Dubai, but
No, it's
think
the-
beyond.
yeah.
Think about Saudi. Think
Yeah.
about the new opportunities that there
Yeah.
are around the world. So
Yeah.
I'm heading to India next week. I'm going to Pune. I'm going to Bombay, Delhi. I think there's new opportunities
Yeah.
there as well.
Just like
So-
20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's all about China.
Yeah.
No, it'd be crazy enough you don't have a China strategy, right?
Right.
Now the next 20 years is Middle East. Like, how can you not have a Middle East strategy?
Yeah.
So that's So be an entrepreneur, but find the right place to be.
Find the right place to be an entrepreneur. Good
Yeah,
way
yeah.
to end that.
All right.
As always, the whiskey's never done, and neither is the conversation.
I'm
I'm sure we could have
Lai.
talked about a lot more, and hopefully we'll have you back to talk about it again soon.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, Rickesh here, the Whiskey Chief. Firstly, thanks so much for watching this episode. It really means a lot to us. If you can, like and subscribe below. It just really helps us to keep bringing you the best whiskeys in the world. Solange, and I'll talk to you soon.